Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna make some updates on some projects that I've been working on for the past few months or so. We're gonna take a look at how things are evolving, at things such as the rupicolous Laelia, the scale-infested orchid that we found recently, and more. Some things you might not know about unless you follow my second channel, which you'll have linked down below in the description. Before we get into it, let me just remind you that we have limited edition merch, the Francis Fox merch, only a few days left. You'll find the link again to the shop in the description if you're interested in having anything. And with that said, let us start with the rupicolous Laelias. Alrighty, here they are. In case you missed my previous videos on these orchids, check them down below, there are two. And the interesting things with the rupicolous Laelias is that they are lithophytes. And well, that's not something spectacular. We have a lot of lithophytic orchids in our collections without even realizing, and we treat them like epiphytes. There isn't much of a difference, to be honest, in most cases when it comes to the cultural needs, let's say, of the root area. However, the rupicolous Laelias have a bad reputation of being quite finicky and just doing better in a setup that contains rocks or is mainly formed by rocks. And you know me, if I don't find a logic with something, I just need to test it out. So I have been testing out two setups with these orchids, a rocky based setup, and of course my traditional at this point, bark and sphagnum moss. I have 6 rupicolous Laelias. I split them into, let's say, fair teams to the best of my abilities, in the sense that I didn't put all the sick ones in stones. And it is time to take a little look-see at them, see how they've been doing. Their root system was not super great. They were actually just imported and potted up by the nursery as well, so they didn't have a chance to establish. So let's just take them one by one. First row, we have first a rocky setup, and this was one of the orchids which did not have any type of root. And furthermore, I have two sections. This is a back bulb, this is a new growth. We can see they both started new growths and also some roots. In the pot, I don't see any roots, so they did not grow to such extent as to reach the side of the pot, but and I'll try to do this without damaging anything. We can see there is a little root there, but can we see that the root tip is not very long? Well, that happens when the root is not quote-unquote happy for whatever reason. It could be low humidity, it could be many factors. I doubt it's low humidity because I have been pretty good in keeping up with watering. If you know, I did add a little bit of sphagnum moss to the setup just to help me out a little bit. So that was one of them, not the most spectacular growth. Here is another one which is in bark and moss. This again did not have any type of root, and we also had a lot of dehydration in the older growths. We can see new growth has started quite a lot and it has grown a lot. This I don't think was even sprouted when we did our first update, or actually our first video, and there is a lot of growth in the way, and I can actually see roots. Sadly though, I cannot really dig too much. Okay, oh, I see one. Do you see that? Do you see how long the growing tip is? Well, that is indicative that something is okay, whether it's moisture or air or, of course, the balance of it. Things are going okay, but again, I don't see roots inside the pot. They did not grow enough to reach the sides of the pot, but I'm seeing amazing evolution in here, and I like how those root tips look like. Another one that is potted in bark and moss. This again had no root. P.S. I just watered them yesterday. If you watched the initial video, you know that this did not exist. It was created afterwards and it had a little root, but it's hard for me to check because I don't want to disturb it. This was a very, very stressed division, let's put it like that. It looks good. It looks like it got hydrated. Can you see that? There are no more wrinkles on the leaves. If this orchid did not have roots, it would have been wrinkled, especially because it's actively growing. So I'm just guesstimating or assuming that there is at least a root there, but we just can't see it and assess its health. So let's continue with another one, which is in the rocky setup. This one has 2 roots on the surface, which I can see that did not continue growth. Can you see? There is no growing tip. There is also one root that goes inside the medium. It has reached a pocket of sphagnum moss. Can you see that? So it is growing, that one, and my suspicion is that it is actually healthy because the orchid is not dehydrated anymore. I could see this one being dehydrated at the beginning. Now she's looking good. Look at that pseudobulb, it is plump. So if this orchid did not hydrate herself, we would see signs of that. But being that that is the only root that is still growing, just because it hit a sphagnum moss pocket, you know, tells me something. It might even tell me that a rocky setup is not suited for my environment, which I already knew, but for the sake of experimenting, you know. So the fact that I added that sphagnum moss there, I believe in this case was beneficial. There is no root in the medium just yet, so it's still pretty early. But yet again, I'm a little on the fence about this whole rocky situation, but that's not the point. The point is to see performance. Next one, again in a rocky setup. This is one that actually looked pretty good, and it's still looking pretty good. I think it had roots as well. Oh yeah, there we go. So can we see we have beautiful roots actively growing, but this one had roots ever since I purchased it. And it was one of those that were doing the best. I have two that have a good root system, this one and another one. So even in a rocky setup, this orchid is doing great, but do you see this root is just going into the sphagnum moss? These roots are sitting on the line of the sphagnum moss. Maybe I'm just seeing what I think I want to see, I don't know. So far, I can see the roots growing on the line of the sphagnum moss or going into the sphagnum moss, not necessarily anywhere else. But this one is looking good, it's doing okay. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the rocks. And lastly, we have one that again had very good roots to wow, okay. I didn't look at this one until today. So this one did have good roots to begin with, just like the previous one, and these roots look so good. They look so much better. I'm sorry, they look much better than the rocky setup. And I will be very honest, I kept an eye on the other one that had the root tips that dried. Oh, I so wanted to switch it to this setup, but no, we're gonna push forward. If she's getting hydrated, we're gonna maintain the setup. So yeah, this is what is this? This is Laelia flava in a moss / bark mixture, and I like it more. I'm sorry. So far, so good. Everybody is doing okay in their setups. We have no casualties, which is super important. I would have to say that if I would see any of these that are potted in rocks just taking a turn for the worse, I would intervene. I would stop the experiment for that one at least. But I didn't see that. That's why I'm continuing with the experiment. I'll tell you my thoughts. I might be biased though, because I told you I don't like the rocky medium. It doesn't work with my environment. So first impressions, I think the ones in bark and sphagnum moss are doing a little bit better, are growing a little bit better roots. I don't know, you're gonna have to be the judge of that, because I'm too biased on this one. I don't like the rocks. But I will continue the experiment and see their performance. Ideally, I want to keep them like this at least a year and see what's happening. But I'm hoping I won't cave in and switch everybody to the sphagnum moss and bark medium. We'll see. Another thing to keep in mind, the rocky setup is so heavy. I am nervous when I work with these orchids because I think I'm gonna drop them. Anyway, so that has been the Laelia update. Let's move on to something else. Next up, the baby Vandas. Again, you'll have the initial video down below in the description. And if you've already seen that video, you might think, they multiplied. You didn't have so many. Well, yes. I think I have 2 or 3 more. What happened was the seller sent them again to me, or sent me new Vandas. I don't know what happened. It was a whole mess, that order. The thing is though, out of 20 Vandas that I had, I only have this much left, which is 14 or something like that. And this is because in their first week of me having them, maybe a week and a half, many of them just perished due to stem rot or crown rot or things of the sorts, which happen on transport. They didn't happen here. I didn't spray them with anything. But when they were crammed in a box without proper ventilation, well, surprise, crown rot and stem rot, and there we go. So I lost half of them, but these are the remaining ones. I'm hoping that I will not continue to lose anything. Some of them are newer, some of them are older. From the older batch, which I think is mainly concentrated on this tray, we already have some new roots starting to develop. They are starting to grow. As you can see, they're starting to not look so dehydrated, to look a little bit better. I still have a few which are a little questionable. Can we see this one? She will lose this leaf, but the important thing is for the stem to remain intact, but we'll see. As for the fact that they're potted, well, things are growing pretty well as long as everything is very airy, which it is. As you can see, I don't see... Oh, this one has a root tip as well. Can we see? Let me increase exposure. There we have it. So for the main part, everybody's doing okay. The problem here really is not the setup, is not the fact that they're potted. I was a little afraid to pot them myself, but the best way to overcome your fears is to actually face them, right? I'm joking, but bottom line, it's okay. If you know how to make that mix, you can grow Vandas potted, absolutely. Took me a while to get over it, but now I did, and I feel a lot more powerful when it comes to choosing setups and making setups work, actually. Alright, so here's my little Brassavola hybrid. This is actually Potinara Hoku Gem Sunspots, and she's in bloom actually. Look how beautiful she is. She's bare rooted. If you don't know the original video, just check the description. Once again, I will have the initial videos on all of these orchids. And I've kept her bare rooted just to see if the scale would come back, and if it comes back, I could easily remove it. If you remember, the majority of the insects were located at the base of the pseudobulbs. If you remember, there was another pseudobulb which was separated from the main plant. That one didn't make it. Actually, the base was so damaged by the scale that it just started to wither off. This, on the other hand, looks okay. No, this is okay. I don't have any insects as far as I can tell. You can see here, this is the damage left by the scale, a little bit of grazing here, but not enough to produce severe damage. One thing I'm a little wary of is this area. Right now I cannot really remove these sheets because they're still green, they're still helping out the new growth form. So I cannot really do anything other than maybe remove just a little bit of it, which I don't think will help me much, but let's just see about it. No, it actually looks okay. I don't see any scale or anything of the sorts here. And this is the only layer that I will remove because it's already dried. If it looks like this, it's not okay to remove it. So it looks good. And I am actually thinking of potting this orchid. However, I'm thinking about that because, well, recently I've discovered a new little helper when it comes to pests and hard to get rid of stuff. And this little helper is leaf shine. I can already hear you gasp. Yeah, I know. Well, I did actually make a video on this thing that I'm testing out for the past month. It's not on this channel though, it's on my second channel. So I'll link you to it down below in the description. You'll see my trial and errors with this guy. I've been testing it on orchids. I've been also testing it on African violets for thrips, which, as it would seem, they're a bit of a nuisance. And it's working out really well as long as I'm on top of it. This particular leaf shine is a petroleum or paraffin based type of mineral oil mixed in with just a little bit of alcohol because it's an aerosol. And what I do with it is actually spray the affected areas, and everything in that area pretty much is gone. Now, I shall preface this by saying that just because you see me do this doesn't mean you should do it as well. There are very different products on the market, that's one. I'm still testing this out. I don't know the long-term effects of this, that's second. And if you do want to test out something, which is totally fine, make sure that you first test it out on one leaf, one plant. Don't go about spraying your collection with anything that you see on the internet until you test it out. So what I want to do with this guy is spray a little bit the pseudobulbs in the areas which I know had scale. In this way, I can make sure that those areas are protected and I won't have another infestation there. And whatever is on the surface, you know, it's visible. My problem was here because I could not see those pesky little insects there. So what I will do, I'll show you just a little bit now. I'll do this outside. I'm gonna do this and put a little layer of oil there. And I know that scale will not thrive there. So I will treat these sides very carefully. I will pot the orchid, keep it a lot more stable, because one thing I don't want to do is mess up these roots. Can you see they're not actively growing? I would love them to actively grow, but I need to keep them stable. because it's a shame. Look how pretty the orchid is. It's beautiful. So I will do this off camera, but yeah, so far so good with my little orchid, and she's in bloom and she's wonderful. I did not, oh no. Okay, well, this is unexpected, but I'm gonna show you another thing related to pest. Since she's quarantined next to some other quarantined stuff, remember I told you I had a little bit of an aphid outbreak? Well, can we see aphids here? Luckily, aphids are not a big deal, and when it comes to flowers, I'll show you how I like to remove them in such a way that I don't actually damage the flower. I use Scotch tape, I get a little piece of tape, and then I do this. There we go. This reminds me of that roller that you use when you have pet hair on your clothes. That's exactly what I'm doing here. See how many I got? If I see them on leaves or new growths, I just use a soapy solution with my mineral oil actually, and that will take care of them. But on flowers, I cannot do that because oil actually damages the flowers a lot. So I remove them manually in this way. And I'm able to completely save the flower. Last year has been quite the year for pests, and this is because it didn't rain for a long time, and rain is one of the natural, let's say, measures of control that these pests have. So outside of my greenhouse, things were pretty full of bugs, and of course they found their way into the greenhouse. And since I have so many orchids, it's sometimes hard to spot everything. Okay, so I'll quarantine this in a different area. I'll take care of the aphids in the way that I showed you. Aphids are actually very susceptible even to soapy water, but if you put those things on the flowers, you can actually mess up the flowers, and I just love the blooms so much. I don't want to lose them. That's why I'm using the Scotch tape method. Otherwise I wouldn't have used it. But there we have it. And since we talked about leaf shine, let's segue again to another update. As I was telling you on my second channel, the thrip situation wasn't so bad on orchids. It was a lot worse on African violets, but I did discover that there were a few orchids that they just preferred, and especially the ones that were in flower or they had buds. And this is one of the orchids that had some thrips on the flowers. Can you see that things are looking a little bit shiny? Well, I discovered quite a few thrips on the flowers of this orchid, and also here in the crown where the growth is freshest. So what I did was I sprayed with this stuff, the crowns and the flowers wherever I saw them. But this can actually make the flowers fade away. Honey, what are you doing there? Okay, here's somebody you don't usually see on camera. This is Joey. She is a much shyer girl. Maya is more friendly, and typically you don't see Joey around, but she's around, flying around, being all sweet, but she's the shy one. Whenever I make those commentaries, I like to imagine that Joey is always making fun of me and Maya always defends me. But Joey is just as sweet as Maya. She's just shy, my pretty girl. Okay, so I did notice that thrips do tend to prefer buds and flowers, but I noticed that only the green part of the flower. And this was something that I said in that video on my second channel, that I'm surprised that the thrips that I have don't actually go for the flowers. If you check the internet, you'll see that the first thing you need to do when you have thrips is remove buds and flowers and all of that, because they like to sit in the flowers, especially with African violets. Well, the ones that I have don't. They always sit on the leaf, never ever the flower. And this is so interesting. On this orchid, which I've already sprayed, and yes, I sprayed oil on the flower. It's not gonna last long, but I had to. On this flower, I only saw them on the green part of the flower, not the lip or this magenta side, only the green. So if green is chlorophyll, then yes, that's why the thrips were only on the green part of the flower. Oh, there you go. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing. They tend to go for the chlorophyll, not the other pigments in the flower. And it's valid with African violets as well. I've only seen them on leaves, which is slightly weird. Everything that I read about thrips tells me to look out for lost pollen and things of the sorts because they like to dwell there. Mine don't. So sadly, what I need to do is keep an eye on all of my orchids which have spikes and buds at the moment and do a little bit of spraying, because you never know. I don't have them on all of my orchids, but they can spread. Adults can actually fly. You might have seen those blue tapes in my greenhouse at the moment. I don't know how much they help, but hey, they catch some fungus gnats as well, so that's good. I really cannot wait for spring to come and put these orchids outside, because outside they will find some predatory insects that hopefully will come and take care of the issues that I have. I think in about 2 weeks I can start to put stuff outside. I was already thinking to start with the dendrobiums, but we'll see about that. But as for the thrips, yeah, that's what has been going on. And that's what I'm using. So far so good. I do not need to prepare this. I know that it will deliver a lot of product. I don't think I even used half, and I traded so many plants, all of my African violets and quite a few orchids, and I still have a lot of it. So it's pretty economical, pretty cheap. I only place it in the areas that I need. Will I use it instead of the oily solution? No, because I have 400 orchids. And this is not economical when you deal with 400 orchids. But when it comes to mild infestations, I think it does a great job. I will still test it. I will let you know. Be careful with things like these. This is mineral oil. You might know oil suffocates leaves and everything if you don't use it properly. Mineral oil, on the other hand, is much lighter than vegetable oil, so the chances of you suffocating anything are lower with this guy than, I don't know, something like canola oil. But of course, you need to be careful. And just to get this out of the way, I'm sure there will be comments about this. Yes, I've tried neem. Of course I did. For so many years, I keep trying neem with no result. That's why I'm using alternative methods. So that's about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have other updates you'd like to see, let me know in a comment down below. And if you didn't know, I have a second channel and I post videos there as well. Mind you, not necessarily about orchids. Do visit the description. I'll link you to it down below. The name is very suggestive, so you know the drill. Like or dislike this video below, subscribe to this channel for more orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, updates, all sorts of orchid topics. Check out my Instagram and Facebook, and if you wish to support the channel and help it grow, do consider visiting the merch store down below. And with that said, I'll see you next time. Bye!